Freedom's greetings, Helldivers. My name is Lugos, and I'd like to welcome you to the October 15th patch update. To start off, resupplies will now appear on the minimap, as this is of course such a huge W, as this will help you save up on resupplies as you're able to find your original one. And of course, as a solo player, this is especially super awesome. Now of course, let's talk weapons, our favorite thing when it comes to democracy. Starting of course with the plasma weapons, featuring of course the PLAS-101 Purifier. Minimum charge of 0.1 seconds gives a 50% damage multiplier. 1 second charge time will give a 100% damage multiplier. Now when it comes to bugs against beefier enemies like the alphas, it'll be able to kill them effectively with 3 fully charged shots. Of course, not too exciting, but definitely a lot better than the gun shooting sponges at your enemies now. I legit have not used this weapon at all, and I have to say, I'm actually starting to really love this weapon. Sure, it's just another version of the Scorcher, but I kind of like being able to kill alpha warriors when the alphas spawn warriors right from the ground, and you can kill them instantaneously with it as well. The explosion damage being able to kill a lot more of the weaker bugs within one burst is honestly pretty nice as well. Though of course I've never used this weapon at all, I had no idea if the explosion radius was able to kill weaker bugs within one burst. So of course, with my opinion, it is of course highly subjective, but I honestly like this gun now, being able to kill a little bit more of the beefier targets like alphas a little more quicker than last time. When it comes to bots, it'll be able to kill striders when shooting them in the leg within about 2 shots, or maybe 3 depending on some circumstances. Carefully placed headshots on devastators will kill them instantaneously, and this of course will work with berserkers. Now a question that's probably going to be floating out in the air is probably going to be, is this weapon worth using it against gunships? Yeah, it can definitely kill them pretty quickly. But although the one thing to get used to is that the projectile is pretty damn slow, much like the explosive crossbow, and of course it will take some timing to get the projectile speed down to take out gunships, but I was honestly kind of mind blown that this thing was able to kill gunships as well. And now let's move on to the OG, the PLAS-1 Scorcher. The PLAS-1 Scorcher is featuring a new weapon function which is called Auto Fire. And with that, the fire rate has also been increased from 250 to 350. And this fire rate increase, very noticeable, and it's pretty freaking crazy. And with that being said, they've also increased the magazine capacity from 15 to 20, but they've also reduced the spare magazines from 6 to 5. I of course would have wished that they would have kept the spare magazines instead of being from 5 to 6, but logically of course, kind of makes sense, considering the fact that it now has an extended magazine. The Punisher Plasma has also received a bit of a buff as well, where they've reduced the recoil, and the fire rate has also been increased from 80 to 100. I've also never used the Punisher Plasma, not too big of a fan with it, but I kind of like the fact that the explosion radius can kill biospheres pretty effectively without having to actually hit their head. We also have some pretty nice buffs for a majority of the assault rifles in the game that include the AR-23 Liberator, Liberator Penetrator, Liberator Carbine, the BR-14 Agitator, and the AR-61 Tenderizer. Now for all the Liberators on this list, all their horizontal recoil has been reduced by 30%, but for the Penetrator, they increased the magazine capacity from 30 to 45, a lot more bullets, which is always good, but unfortunately the spare magazines have been reduced from 10 to 7. For the Liberator Carbine, the ergonomics have been increased by 5, making it to about 70, and the reload duration has also been buffed. For the Agitator, I definitely think that the recoil definitely needed to be adjusted because I found it pretty hard to control when it came to third person and first person, and I can find that the first person view for the Agitator a lot more easier to control than when used in third person. Of course, that opinion is of course highly subjective. A lot of people have a lot of better of a time controlling in third person rather than first person, but for me, first person is always my go-to because of course I come from first person shooter games. The projectile damage has also been increased from 80 to 90, and it's pretty noticeable. This gun definitely has probably one of the most satisfying sounds I've ever heard when it comes to an assault rifle, and now knowing that it has more stopping power, I absolutely love it. GR5 Dominator has been moved from the explosive weapon category to the special weapon category. And moving on to sidearms, the P113 Verdict, I honestly like using this pistol a lot more now with the buffs. It's got more stopping power, the armor penetration has also been increased, and even when it comes to the hive guards, I like using this weapon a lot. The Senator, the old reliable, also has its armor penetration increased from 3 to 4, and the projectile damage has also been increased, and, of course, the durable damage has a massive buff from 35 to 70. Pretty freaking beefy. The stim pistol has also had its spread decrease from 30 to 5. Pretty huge. I'll have to give that a try later on because I have found that the projectile spread has been very inconsistent when coming to use that. Also, the muzzle velocity has also been increased from 80 to 200 as well. Now moving on to throwables. The K2 throwing knives. The capacity for the throwing knives has been increased from 8 to 20. You got a lot more knives to throw at bugs or bots, which is pretty awesome. The high explosive grenades damage has been increased from 400 to 800. G6 frag grenade damage has been increased from 250 to 500. And the incendiary grenade has been increased from 150 to 300. All really pretty beefy buffs for these grenades, which I will have to give them a try later on. Alright, now let's talk stratagem support weapons. The autocannon now has a new weapon function called programmable ammunition that it now allows you to switch between normal and flak projectiles. And my god, are the flak projectiles super awesome. The autocannon has now turned into the ultimate anti-air gun, as the flak projectiles, as expected, will shred shriekers like no tomorrow. This is definitely one of the buffs that I definitely know a lot of people were anticipating, especially when they announced, so we're going to be giving it flak ammunition, and I'm like, okay, I like where this is going, and it is definitely worth it. Recoilless rifle has also received a programmable ammunition function, and this allows you to switch between normal projectiles and high explosives. The high explosive rounds have a larger explosion radius and deal more explosion damage, and this of course sacrifices projectile damage and will make it less effective against tanks. I do kind of like the concept of the recoilless rifle now having a dual function, being against tanks or against a larger group of enemies. The airburst rocket launcher's reload duration has been decreased from 7 seconds to 5 seconds. The stalwart LMG ergonomics have been increased from 25 to 40. The MG43 machine gun's magazine capacity has been increased, and its starting spare magazines are also increased as well. And the MG206 hefty machine gun's magazine capacity has been increased from 75 to 100. Now moving on to backpacks, we have the jump pack. And I've honestly been wanting to use this stratagem for a while now. Even with the buffs, it makes me want to use it even more now. But the cooldown has now been reduced from 20 to 15 seconds. You also get a stronger thrust force, and the thrust vector has been tweaked, where you will have a slightly higher jump and more forward momentum. And that's pretty huge. The guard dog that features a Liberator will now carry Liberator Penetrator rounds. The armor penetration has also been increased from 2 to 3, but unfortunately the damage has been increased from 70 to 60, but however, the magazine capacity has been increased from 30 to 45. The drone backpacks now have a toggle drone function, and honestly, I kind of like this a lot, where if you activate it, the drone will leave its backpack to perform its task, and if you deactivate it, the drone returns to the backpack, and it pretty much enters into a passive standby state, meaning that it will not attack as long as it's deactivated. And I like that a lot. And now, let's talk stratagems. The Eagle Strafing Run. The explosion radius has slightly been increased, and the explosion damage has been increased from 250 to 350. Pretty hefty buff. The Orbital Airburst Strike, I like this change a lot. The salvos have been increased from 3 to 4, meaning that the Orbital Airstrike has more opportunities to do more damage, and the duration between the salvos has also been increased from 3 to 4 seconds. And I've been starting to use this along with the Gas Strike to make a ultimate meat shredder combo for the bugs, and it's proven to be pretty effective. The sentry guns, featuring the machine gun, Gatling, rocket, and autocannon sentry, they all received a pretty nice buff where all of their cooldowns have been reduced from about 30 seconds of what there originally was. The machine gun and the Gatling sentry, respectively, have also had their magazine capacity increased, but however, the lifetime has been reduced for all of these sentries by about 30 seconds as well. For the anti-tank mines, they are currently working on changes on the anti-personnel and incendiary mines. However, they're not yet happy with the fixes, as they feel that they introduced too many new problems. They will continue to work on these changes and include them in a future patch. But however, the mines are now only triggered by heavier enemies like Chargers, Bile Titans, Impalers, and Hulks. Damage has also been increased from 800 to 2000, which, holy crap, that's hefty. Pretty much like the thermite grenade buff, almost. The explosion radius has also been decreased. The Tesla Shower has also been changed, where they reduced the charge-up shot cooldown from 3 seconds to 1 second, which means this thing is now more rapid-fire, and this only increases the amount of times that you'll probably be able to kill your teammates with the Arc Tower. The cooldown has also been reduced, just like the other sentries, from about 30 seconds. The Shield Relay has surprisingly also received some changes, where they removed the charge delay between damage taken. They've also increased the charge rate from 300 to 400 health per second, and the radius has also been increased as well. Once the shield is down, however, it will no longer regenerate. And that pretty much concludes all the buffs and changes for weapons and whatnot. And knowing the fact that I've never used the Purifier at all before, I kind of like using this weapon now. I'm probably going to be starting to use this weapon a little bit more now, but although for bugs, I'm mainly probably going to be continuing to use the crossbow, of course. Now, when it comes to enemy buffs and nerfs, there's a lot to go through, but however, this one to me me stands out the most. In response to their disapproval of newly installed cannons on the automaton Hulk cruisers, Super Earth High Command sent a crack commando to sabotage their production facilities. The skilled operative promptly escaped into the shadows after completing their mission. Today, still wanted by the automatons, they survive as a soldier of fortune. Now, if you do have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can enlist John Helldiver. As a result, the automatons had to revert back to using rocket launchers for their Hulk cruisers. And this is huge because the cannons that were used by the automatons ragdoll you 24/7, and that was of course not very fun to fight. Of course, you will still get ragdolled by the rockets. It's less annoying considering the fact that now you're going to be able to at least hopefully get blasted somewhere else into cover. All Devastator's head armor has also been increased from 2 to 1, and their head health has also been increased as well. Berserker's head health has also been increased from 125 to 110. Now, they did list a buff for the heavy Devastators, but I'm pretty sure they mean rocket Devastators for this, because the pause between their salvos have been slightly increased, providing Helldivers with a better opportunity to counterattack. And then we also have some more changes for the tanks, which is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, as now that the rear weak spots of the tank's body will now have their own health pool, which matches the tank's previous total health, which is pretty nice. Because once this health pool is depleted, the tank will also be destroyed. Additionally, these weak spots also deal 150% increased damage to the tank's main health. And a neat little change for the barrage tank turret is that when the turret's destroyed, the whole entire tank is destroyed. And as such, that'll be all from me today, as I don't want to flood you with too much information, as I know that you're very excited to spread democracy and get out there. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace and take care.